I love the story of how we first met and how SurgeOn was born. Remind me.
So that would have been probably what, 5, 6 years ago. We were in New Orleans. We were at the SIS or SLS meeting.
Yep.
And I was getting ready to talk, and I got a text from Mario, because Mario was Labor, our other partner. He was looking for somebody that had a larger social media influence, and he said he'd reach out to you. And he's like, he goes, if you don't know who Mark Soliman is, look him up, get an idea who he is. We got a phone call with him this afternoon or this evening about 6 o'clock. I said, all right. So I get in my phone, I start looking through it, and I look up your picture, I look up everything about you. And then I realized I was getting ready to get on stage, and I wanted to use the restroom first. So I walk out in the hallway, and as I walk out in the hallway, you come walking past me. I was like, wait, you're Mark Soliman. And you were like, yeah. And I was like, I have a meeting with you today. And he said, no, you don't. He said, I have one meeting later, and it's not with you. I just scheduled it. And I was like, no, it's with my partner. And no, it's with me too. Yeah, we have a meeting. And you're like, no way. And so you're from Florida. I'm from Ohio. It turns out you were giving the lecture, I think, 2 after me. And there we are at the same place. It had been 15 minutes before that, when I went to the restroom, I wouldn't have had any idea who you were. Only because I'd looked it up. Literally within 5 minutes, I knew who you were. Yeah,
it's wild, and to see like how things started then, like that faithful day in the bathroom, just like crossing to like going for. It was off the heels of the pandemic, and so like you said, Ohio, Florida, New Mexico, dude. I mean, the company was born virtually, and it's basically stayed that way the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, the reality was, I think we weren't in a room together, all 3 of us, until 2 years ago, 18 months ago?
So. Yeah,
something like that, first time in Orlando. Yeah. And so we did everything through the internet and talking and a lot of late night phone calls, and of course working around our schedules, our busy operative schedules. Yeah, yeah. And so it was, it's kind of amazing when you think that we pulled this off.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I totally, when you and Mario first started talking, the app was mostly around the idea of uploading video and taking video and labeling operative products, meshes, devices, and then mapping that to like a catalog. SurgeOn is pretty different than that today. I wondered, when you guys first started talking about this, how does that track to where we are today?
Well, I mean, if you really go back to the origin story, original one, Mario reached out to me. It was at an Intuitive event, and I was on Facebook at the time, and I was watching somebody on stage. I'm not going to name any names. And I thought, I can think of a half a dozen surgeons in this crowd that are as good as the people on stage. I've heard these lectures 50 times. And so I actually put a post on Facebook, and I left. And everybody threw a fit, because I was basically saying I thought the conference could be better. And Mario reached out to me and said, hey, I've been working on this nonprofit idea that I think could be good. And it was this basic social media platform. And we went back and forth on it for probably about a week, and we decided to make it was a conference in your pocket was the theory. And how do we produce a conference in your pocket? And that's kind of where it started. And until we met you, we got bogged down with the development team, and we're back and forth because they're out of Colorado originally. And then we brought you on board, and it was really your eye for detail and your knowledge base. I mean, you're very much in tune with how social media functions. You were very good at it, and it allowed us to take what was an idea and turn it into a very real application.
Yeah, in other words, my OCD tendencies and my pixel counting.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my favorite story of all. We were on a conference call, and it was with the AI graphics specialist for the original company we're working with, and she's saying, look, I think this is as small as we can make the scalpel. She's like, it's 9 pixels. Oh, actually, no. You said, I had a magnifying glass out last night, and it was 9 pixels across, and I'm sure we can get that down to 7 pixels. And I was like, that's what we needed. Because up until then, neither of us, Mario and I, were willing to really push back against what they were telling us. And you were the first one to sit down and be like, no, you got this wrong. We're going to do it this way. And you were right. We got it down to 7 pixels.
Yeah, it was, I'll tell you, it's a labor of love. Man, I'm telling you, man, pixel counting is where it's at. Yeah, life happens in the details like that.
Yeah, no, it was so much fun, just because the 3 of us came into it with different backgrounds, different perspectives, but without some aspect of each personality type, you don't get here.
Yeah. And
so it's really worked out real well. And we've had, I think the biggest debate early on we had was over the logo, and then we completely threw that one away anyway. We went with the better one, so yeah. It's worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think my favorite memory was, probably our first face-to-face meeting. We met in Orlando, and it was cool just finally like seeing how far we had come, and like the fact that we got to that point and we never met face-to-face, or maybe for a brief moment. But it was like just meeting each other. Like, is that Mario? Is that Heff? Like, oh, that's Heff. Yeah. So like, yeah, just seeing each other, like finally meeting, and then like there's just like a long relationship that continued, and yet knowing that we got to that point in the development of the platform and the development of the company, yeah, pretty much remotely. But was most important is that we were able to get through, raising funds, developing, tearing down development, starting, getting a new dev team involved, onboarding, many teams and many members, doing all that in a remote fashion. I think really kind of strengthened the team.
Yeah, the first version we had was about 50% completed. I mean, remember that they sent us, it was not a good product. And the team we were using, the development team we were using at the time, was like, no, it works fine. We're like, we hit this button, nothing happens. You hit this button, nothing happens. It's like, well, that's going to cost you another $20,000 to put that button in. It's like, that was the deal. You gotta fix this. And so then we got our new development team, and luckily you had connections, and we were able to make that happen. And they rebuilt the entire app in 3 months? Yeah. And all of a sudden we have a fully functional, modern, unbelievable, minimum viable product, we would say. Yeah. And that was the beginning of it. And now we're here. Yeah.
So in SurgeOn, I'd love to get your take on this. Right now we have let's call it different modules. We have the platform that allows us to have conversations like forums, the communities platform for private communities. We have the AI integration now when we do SurgeOn Scribe. We have conferences. Soon we'll have SurgeOn Academy. Of those things, what's probably your favorite feature of the platform?
Surprisingly, I'm probably most proud of the conference feature, just because it's one of those things that when I was a younger surgeon, we would go to these conferences, you download an app, and you go to the conference, then your app would be sitting on your phone 3 weeks later, like, why is this even on here? Like, it doesn't do anything, it's not functional. Why did they spend all this money to put an app on that's literally good for 3 days and then it's done? And I was like, someday somebody needs to solve this problem. And then inadvertently, it was us. Yeah. And we solved it. It's like now it has a real function, and you can go back. I mean, I remember the first time it was your conference, Orlando Colorectal Conference. We were down in Universal Studios, and I went to lunch, and I went and ate at a place called Cowfish, and I set the phone up, and I was watching the conference while I was eating lunch, and I just looked at it going, I can't believe we did this. Yeah. Like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, I'll never forget. Yeah, you're exactly right. I remember sitting at a conference. I think it was, I won't name the conference, but I remember I was looking at the app, and I was like, this thing is terrible. It's like, just build it in a SurgeOn. Yeah. And then next thing you know, we had conferences, we shot a couple of screen shots around, some paper sketches and all that. And next thing you know, a few months later, we had a fully functional conferencing module in the application. Yeah, it's been a labor of love. And I'll tell you, one of the coolest things about it is that, it's solving real problems. Yeah. And I think, when we built this company, when we started, I don't think we really knew what we were getting into. I mean, maybe you did, I didn't, but I didn't really realize the complexity of starting a social media company in a big complex organization like this.
Well, I think my take, both of us have done things in our lives. I learned a long time ago, don't ask questions, just do it. And, if you get the right people around you, it's just problems that need to be solved. So other people solve these problems. And so I figured that we had the right people to solve them ourselves, and we'll get there, because if you look too much into it, then you'll find every reason not to do something this crazy.
Jensen Huang is the CEO of NVIDIA. He famously says that had he known, he and the founding team, had they knew the effort that would take to get NVIDIA to where it is today, they would not have started the company. Yeah. Not that he regrets starting the company, but he just knew that the monumental effort that it took to get the company to where it is today, there's no way they would have done it. So I wonder, knowing what it took for us to get to this point, would you have ever made that phone call? Would you ever have stopped me in that bathroom? Or would I have ever stopped and said, oh yeah, sure, let me take the call tonight?
I think you both would have anyway. And the reason I say it's the limitless opportunity for creative solutions that keeps me engaged, and I enjoy it. And I think without an endeavor such as this, I would find myself withering. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. So I do love that aspect of it. Now, if I realize how many late nights or early mornings, you make me get up at 5 a.m. for meetings, for gosh sakes. If I'd have known that was coming, I probably would have signed off a little bit different. But no, can you imagine doing anything else? This is...
No, people need, I was listening to a podcast, Joe Rogan, and actually Mark Zuckerberg was on there. And interestingly, he tore his ACL a couple, maybe a year or two ago, he was saying, doing MMA training. So he's a big MMA fighter now. And his wife, after he hurt his ACL, was like, you have to get back fighting. She's like, what are you talking about? I hurt myself, I got injured, I was training too hard or whatever, and he got really badly injured because of fighting. And she's like, you are a much better person when you fight. You're a much better person when you have some sort of outlet to de-stress or whatever it is. And so, yeah, to your point, I think that no, there's no way I could have enough creative outlet, whether at my day job or even at home. I mean, I would always find something to do, but the blessing and the curse of this company and this product that we've developed is its limitless creativity, and you have to innovate. You innovate or die, and there's always something else to do.
Yeah.
Always another problem to solve, always another issue to resolve, always another product to create. So it's like, it's literally, it's almost mind-numbing, the amount of things that we can do.
Well, and I agree. I think it's fun because you go out, and the first time you will walk people through it. Now, if you remember way back at the beginning, we were sitting there and you were selling people on an idea. You'd be like, here's what it's going to look like. It's not there yet. It doesn't do that, but it's going to do this. And that was a much harder sale. Now you're like, no, it does this. It does this. Let me show it to you. But even then, I think that it's watching people see it for the first time and tell you all the things that they see it's capable of doing. And you're like, yes, I know. Yes, I know. And then there's that one, you're like, I never thought about that. And I always like hearing it. So at first I was like, man, everybody tells me, oh, have you thought about this? And you're like, yeah. But enough times people have said something like, you know what? I never really looked at it that way. And everybody that hears about it for the first time or really plays with it the first time, their wheels start spinning and you just see it happening. The same thing that you felt the first time you looked at it, the same thing that we felt when we started building it. And so, I mean, I don't know if you've experienced that as well, but.
I mean, it's just that when you and I, or the three of us, with Mario included, get together, it's hours of just like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could build this. We'll put a conferencing module in there. We'll put an AI transcription thing in there. We can do CPT codes. We could do, I mean, the options are literally limitless. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have in the digital world is you can literally build anything. It's just what makes the most sense to build next? How do you prioritize? Because you build something, something can't be built. So you have to prioritize. And I think that's the biggest, I feel like, challenge that we have is, and the collective we, not necessarily our company alone, but all others. It's like, how do you prioritize the right thing and talk to the right people and get the right stakeholders involved, ask the right questions to build the right thing next?
Yeah, I also think, though, it's trying to find that crack in the world. When I look at like the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the larger platforms, the thing they're missing that we can fill, that crack in their setup, that's, you know, we're taking a very small percentage of their population and we're concentrating into one place. And what makes us different than them? What makes it a draw to bring these people to us and to work through our platform? And I think there's a lot of opportunity there to find areas that they're failing, and then we can be successful. And I think that's kind of been our luxury, I guess. But mostly it's because we have great leadership. The famous Mark Soliman.
I don't know about that. the amazingly talented Jeremy Heffner. Yes, I mean, I think we're blessed with good talent, hard workers, and you can muscle your way through a lot of things. But there's a lot of things that that can only be tackled with cohesion of the group, common and shared vision, and a North Star. And I think that North Star is, as we were talking about earlier, is Surgery Unified. I mean, the company name.
Yeah.
Is that we rebranded the name. It used to be SurgeOn LLC to Surgery Unified because we felt like it was. We needed something to kind of guide us. Yeah. And I think that now what's great is that there's always something to guide any question, any strategic imperative, anything at all. We just say, does this align with the company name Surgery Unified? And if it does, we go. Sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes we know the best word in the dictionary sometimes for a startup is the word no. It's tough to say no to certain things, but if it aligns with that word company name Surgery Unified, then we roll with it. It's really cool. And you've come up with some crazy good ideas too, stuff I didn't even think could work. Yeah, it's been really fun to see that. I mean, your ideas sometimes when we're talking, I don't see it at first. I mean, the cutting edge is one of those kind of ideas. I didn't see it at first, But the more you kind of explain what was in your head, I was like, oh, this makes a ton of sense. Walk us through like what was that about? What is the cutting edge news? Tell us all about this.
Yeah, I mean, the way I saw it, if you look at one, social media, I think in its normal state, its current state, there's only so much the algorithm can do. And so we need to have, I tell myself, the fourth dimension, and that's real in-person interaction to showcase the very real intellectual and creative energies that exist in the world of surgery. And what I mean by that is I want to be able to go to a conference. We know that at these conferences, these surgical conferences, this is top. I mean, surgery is one of the top professions in the world, meaning advanced professions, life and death is on the line. And a lot of information comes out of these conferences and just kind of dies there. Like it doesn't go anywhere. And I think there's an opportunity for us to take the people, the key opinion leaders that are at these conferences, have a conversation with them, get the kind of the abstract form of what they're talking about at the conference so that we can share that with the rest of the surgical community and they can see, oh, I now understand what SAGES is talking about. I understand what the colorectal community is talking about. So I'll give you an example I always use is I'm a trauma surgeon by training, and I'm not going to go to a colorectal conference. I'm not going to go to ASCARS. Not because I'm not interested in what they're doing, but I would feel a little out of place in a colorectal conference, and I have my own conferences I have to go to, but I also cover emergency general surgery, and I might see a patient that's had a colorectal procedure recently that's a more modern procedure, different than what I was trained, and now I have access to, I want them, other surgeons to be able to see, okay, so here's what colorectal's talking about, here's why they're talking about it, here's the new advances. I'm not necessarily going to be able to go to that conference and see it all, but I can get the parts I need to know. And if there's something interesting, it gives me a reason to do a deep dive and really look into that field. And so it's more of an ability to take the information that's coming out of these conferences and share it across the entire surgical community so that we can all see what we're all doing. And there may be something that colorectal is working on that has application in even thoracic or plastics or whatever, because you didn't really know. The techniques are changing continuously. I mean, definitely the same way. Is everything done the same way now as it was when you were in residency? Not even close.
Yeah.
And so when we're trained, that's kind of where it dies off in some of these specialties. So I think that was a big part of it. But the other part of it is some aspect of what we're going to get out of these questions is actually for the general community too, and the general population, because once again, a lot of amazing information, a lot of really smart people here having conversations, deep conversations. And we have the ability now through our platform and through our connections in the PR and so forth to get those stories out to the wider audience and really ask some questions to the key opinion leaders, the experts in the field that the general audience needs to hear. And surgery's done a nice job of walling themselves off from the population. And I do think there's a reason for that. I mean, it's kind of it's one of those, it's a very private field for a good reason. But how do we grant them some access to really take advantage of all the wealth of knowledge that's being produced at these conferences?
So how is the cutting edge set up? Walk us through the mechanics of this conversation kind of we're having now, the setup. Walk us through how all this works.
So we have a fully functional, broad media team, true production staff. This is a high-end, as good as you can get kind of group that really knows how to produce a very cutting-edge, modern interview platform. We want it to be comparable to anything else that's out there on the market because, as I said, this is very valuable information that needs to be treated and respected as such. And the people that we're inviting here are some of the top in the field. And so we want it to be the feel of a true formal sit-down interview. And hopefully we'll actually get 30 minutes, 40 minutes of conversation out of this. You may only see 7 or 8 once we're done editing, but we'll have access to some of the other shorts and cuts and stuff as we go. So you can really get a feel for it. But on top of that, I mean, it's not just the interviews we're doing here. We started the medical brief, which is a group we're working with outside. Brian Schmutzler and his team, their podcast, Brian's got about 100,000 social media followers. And in those interviews, those are a little less formal. And we're interviewing the AMA president, the ASA president, the former Surgeon General. And those are to give our fellow surgeons an opportunity to kind of understand bureaucratic medicine a little better, the bigger picture. I think a lot of us, we get so into our worlds that what is the purpose of a Surgeon General? Like what is the AMA president thinking about and like what's their purpose? And I think to give us an opportunity to talk to them and give them the surgeon's perspective and ask questions from how we would see the world and also to better understand where we fit in the bigger picture of medicine in general.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I think taking it back to the cutting edge and how this is set up, I also love how when you began to articulate the vision of this, was to take, like you said, maybe a 30, 45-minute conversation on the ground, but we edit it down to 7 minutes. But those 7 minutes or that 45 minutes, whatever it is, we're taking a 3 to 5 minute podium presentation. And we're taking those speakers, and I love how you describe this. You're taking them around, you're sitting them down and having a long form content interview to expand what was just spoken about, rushed through in 3 minutes. And now I want to hear over 45 and tell me everything about how you did the research, what that research means to us. Truly, what does a product mean? What does that innovation mean? Translate it to us so that we can understand what the next step for innovation is. And really literally, what's the cutting edge of surgery? So I love how you envision that. And I feel like it's really kind of coming to fruition.
No, I appreciate that. I think that I have a strong belief. I don't think there are dumb surgeons. I really don't. I mean, there are some that are lazier than others. I'll give you that. But you don't survive the testing and everything that we go through if you don't have a certain level of just smarts about you, let's just say. And all of us have a different perspective. Some of us chose to do academics, some chose to do community, some chose to go make a lot more money, some chose to focus on their families, whatever it is that they decided. But in either case, each one comes in with a certain perspective, a certain wisdom that they develop over the years of their practice. And I think having an opportunity through both the platform where we can have those conversations, and then these kind of truly more formal sit downs with the thought leaders, it's seeing all these different perspectives and gaining wisdom and insight from all of us, because we all have something to offer each other. And that gets lost, I think, sometimes in our, we'll say, debates or battles amongst the various specialties or groups or whatever. But we really should be sharing as much as we can, because life's short and there's a lot to learn. And the more you know, that little trick that you may have shown me last week or Mario may have picked up that he's now put on the app, that may save somebody's life legitimately someday.
Yeah, I'd say one of my favorite interactions I had was I posted a video of an inferior mesenteric artery blowout during a lower anterior resection. And I posted the video, it was a quick clip, vessel sealed, things blew out, and basically how me and my team salvaged that case and quickly got control of it, no problem. Coolest thing was like a week later, this at ASCRS when SurgeOn hosted one of the educational symposia there. A random person came up to me, he's like, Dr. Soliman, just want to thank you. That video that you posted with the IMA blowout saved my patient's life the very next day. I saw how you and your team managed it, saw you use an endoloop to do this, or suture repair, whatever it is. And that literally was a technique I put in my toolbox for the very next day. So, it's when you hear stuff like that, like, that's why we're doing this. And sometimes you lose track of the forest from the trees and the why and the big projects that we're doing and the whatever it is. And you realize you have those ground conversations like that. And that's kind of what it all is for.
But and I will say this, we're not making a bunch of money on this. Like, this has not been it's not a huge financial gain. But what it has been is you are the person that everybody thinks you are. Everybody that I talk to in surgery, I go, do you know Mark? So I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen his videos. And I think that personality you have, that educating, teaching, I've never seen you doing it in a way that was for self-gratification or any sort of, personal pick whatever term we want to use to make yourself feel better. It was always, I'm glad I was able to help you. I'm glad that you learned something from this. I'm glad what I showed you benefited some patient somewhere. And I think that bringing you on board for multiple reasons was a huge success, but part of it's just your personality style. You're truly in this, I think, to help people. I think that's always been there. And now as we expand internationally, especially worldwide, I think there's a huge opportunity for us to take that knowledge that not just you or I may have, but everybody on the platform has, and really share that with the world. And as I've said before, like, if you figure out the best way to do something, we can now disseminate that, for now at least, across the UK, Canada, United States. I mean, everybody can see it, and we can be moving much faster and saying this is a better way. And you just gave an example how just the next day, if you had to post that video 2 days later, that person may be dead. Yeah. So it is a huge difference.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Thanks for your kind words. But I mean, I think the one of the other beautiful things about like what we're doing here with the cutting edge, but also with the conferences platform, is that we allow the conference organizer, like the sages of the world or the whoever is in the application, the course hosts, to take all those videos that are being captured and then place them in the app so that the end user, the attendee of the conference, can effectively relive the entire conference after the fact. So it's really cool to be able to say, you know what, I didn't just attend the meeting and it died, as you alluded to earlier, it just died in my pocket 3 days later. No, I can go 3 years later and rewatch that session on rectal cancer management, on how do you manage trauma to the aorta, whatever it is. Yeah, so it's really cool that we took all the problems that we found, because we live this life at conferences and we live this life in the operating room, and we take those problems and we map solutions directly into the app to it. So I love how you kind of mentioned that.
Yeah, no, it's the fact you say that. I went back and rewatched one of the lectures from our conference like 2 years ago, just yesterday, because I was like, I remember there's a lecture on this,
Yeah.
and then but there it is, and it is one of those why it took 3 random surgeons to figure out a solution to this problem.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes it tough. I think anybody else in the field, it's hard to know where the holes are unless you're in the field itself.
That's right. That's right.
So,
and speaking of holes, so one of the crazy ideas you came up with is this idea of the cutting edge series here, but also our partnership with MedQuil and SurgeOn Scribe. Talk us through that. Like, it's a fun story. Actually, I think anyone's going to love how this kind of came to fruition in Orlando.
Yeah. So we were at a conference. All of us were. This is one all 3 of us attended. And actually, I got to give Mario credit for it, because Michael Ewing, Dr. Ewing, approached Mario and he said, "Look, I got this thing that my brother-in-law and I are working on," and Dr. Ewing is a surgeon as well. And he shows him this scribe feature, this AI scribe feature, and him and Mario play with it. And Mario acts like a patient, and Dr. Ewing acts like he's the doctor. And then Mario flips out super excited. He comes running across to us, and we were sitting around with our tech team, and Mario's like, "You got to see this. You got to see this." So he puts it down, and as he's doing it, they're doing it again. Somebody interrupts the conversation and starts talking to Mario, completely unrelated to the little skit they were doing. They leave. Then somebody else drops something. It was loud. All this stuff happens, and then. But Dr. Ewing looks at us and he's like, "Don't worry, it's okay." And then we hit the button. It's like, boom, there's a perfect note. It's a perfect note. CPT codes, everything's done. Even though it was interrupted, even though there's a bunch of other people talking, we're in a loud hall. And all of us are just like, wow, that's amazing. Do it again. Next thing you know, there's 16 people looking around this thing as we're all doing it again. We start to realize just one, I think it was showing us for the first time how powerful AI really was in terms of day-to-day helping us out. As surgeons, a lot of times we don't have the time to go find it. Let's say I want to get one of these. I don't have time to go find an AI app that I know I can trust, that I know is HIPAA compliant, that I know is not from a company that I shouldn't trust with the data. There's a lot of fear in that, especially because it's such a private world we live in. This is going to be, patient data. That having a surgeon who I knew developed it for the right reasons, who was working through HIPAA compliance and all that we could vet. And so at that point, it's like, this is something that really is amazing when you watch it play out. And there they are. And it worked. It was immaculate. It was amazing. So I just saw it as, we want to support other surgeons trying to do amazing things. And we've had a lot of them that kind of approach us, and we're always willing to hear what they have to say, because once again, surgeons are smart people, and they just need our help. Like, we need help from other people at some point. And so we're really here to benefit them as much as we can. And we've worked with like PDG, and some of these other groups that we're working with, that they come to us and say, "Hey, we need a hand," and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's like elevating the surgeon entrepreneur, whether it's the MedQuils of the world, whether it's the PDGs of the world, or also, we have numerous surgical societies now that they have the idea, they have the creativity, they have the group, they have the team, but they don't necessarily have the administrative support. And that's why we have a lot of our partnerships where, like the Society for Black Colorectal Surgeons, Space Surgery Society, the Transplant, Latino Surgical Society. There's countless organizations come to us to truly be under the umbrella of Surgery Unified, because that's our goal, is to unify surgery into one cohesive, really truly altruistic ecosystem. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not to supersede them. It's not to push them out. It's actually to incorporate them. And because if you think about it, these societies are all producing a lot of amazing information. The membership is phenomenal, of course, very diverse, and we need their opinion. We need to hear them too. And right now, they're siloed off in their worlds, and we can bring them together. A lot of people don't even know some of these societies exist. And now they have a place where we can see what they're doing, share the knowledge, share the talent, and I think plug them into an ecosystem where now they have access to some marketing, some PR. A lot of these societies don't have that kind of money or that ability, and we can kind of, as a group, really work together to give everybody that opportunity.
Yeah. It's all about economies of scale, right? So, if we have a resource in-house that's doing administrative work, we're paying for Zoom accounts, we're paying for email accounts. Well, it's easier for us to just incrementally add one additional license, for example, than for them to spin up a whole new license of a brand new set of Zoom accounts and a brand new email domain or whatever it is. And so, that's the beauty of this ecosystem that we're starting, is that we benefit when we're all together, and that's truly what's called the network effect. When we're all together in one place, we all grow, we all get better, we all improve, and so that's truly, truly our goal is to do that.
And I think one of the ways that we maintain that those on the platform itself, we're very cordial. I think that everybody's been, I mean, we've removed 2 people in the entire time, and neither of them were surgeons, best we can tell. One was a bot, I think, and one was a kid. I'm pretty sure got a hold of his dad's phone. So, but other than that, we haven't had there's not a lot of battles. There's not a lot of negative discussions, bullying. I mean, we're not really, it's been a very good, open, and that's what it's built for open dialogue.
No, the culture of the platform is actually, it's awesome. I mean, supportive. It's transparent. I mean, people they're gonna give candid feedback, but it's not in a negative at all way. It's always in a constructive, very polite way. To your point, I mean, we did have in the earlier days of SurgeOn, we had a couple people come on, stole NPI numbers, and falsified their identity and joined the platform. We immediately got rid of them though.
Yeah.
Which is why when we launched the last version of SurgeOn, and we timed it also with our EU, UK, and Canadian launch. We released a new version of the verification process, and that verification process allows kind of 2 different identification or verification methods. One is proof of identity and proof of profession. So that way, say you're a physician, and you say that you're a physician. Now we know you're a physician. Show us whether it's your diploma, whether it's your NPI number, whether it's your hospital badge, but show it to us by an identity as well. So we have that dual factor authentication to ensure that the people are truly who they are on the platform. And we feel like this really ties and closes those loops quite well, that allows us to ensure that the people that are on the platform are who the people say they are on the platform. There's no falsification of records, no falsification of identity. And so I know if I'm talking to the amazing Jeremy Heffner, that indeed is the amazing Jeremy Heffner on the other side of that handle. So we're super proud of that launch that we did.
Yeah, no, I think that it's really important. This goes back to current social media and then what we're trying to accomplish. Like, we are not a normal social media platform. We need to make sure that everybody's verified. We need to make sure that the conversations we're having are behind closed doors to some extent, so that we can have those open dialogue conversations with industry, with each other, especially if we're talking about a complication, we're talking about something where, surgery is dirty, like it is. As my old partner said, he's like, what we do is dangerous. Don't forget that. Yeah. And there's sometimes that you have to have the video or the non-curated material that you're looking at that's the reality of the world that we live in. And this is the opportunity to do that. And I think the verification process really guarantees that this is a legitimate place you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true that what we do is dangerous. I think that one of my favorite features of the platform is the search feature, the search, sort, and filter. Actually, we can search videos or posts or anything down to the level of the operative step. So it allows you to truly prepare for surgery and also show what I don't want to do. Because I've seen the videos in the platform that have the lowest ratings, and I've seen the videos that have the highest ratings. So that ability to pull content out is super, super helpful.
I will say, Mark, sometimes the way I look at it, if you really kind of want to see how the platform looks in my mind, because I know sometimes we have these conversations and almost every night we're talking, and what I'm seeing and what you're seeing, we try to align the two. But SurgeOn, it's not just for the surgeons. The interface between surgery and industry, the interface between surgery and eventually nursing, the interface between surgery and finance, surgery and legal, surgery and scrub techs. I mean, it's really figuring out what all those different interfaces are. So we do have obvious communication with industry leaders, device companies, and such. And part of it is because we need somebody to help fund this. We want to keep it free to surgeons as much as possible. But also, that's a very important conversation that needs to be occurring, and we need to have a way to access each other and really keep that open dialogue. And I think part of the platform, once again, is to create an environment where we can have those open, fair conversations, not just amongst each other, but with all these other constituencies that we're definitely tangentially at least aligned with at all times. But I feel like we're doing a good job of that, but where do you think that that's going?
The biggest threat, I think, to our company, I'll say that, the biggest threat to SurgeOn is the lack of awareness of all the stuff that we're doing. Because you're right. I mean, we talked about this all the time, is that the suture that I use to save a life, the suture I use to take a cancer out, sew that anastomosis, I didn't create that suture. I'm relying on someone else to do it. I have to have my industry partners aware of what I need, and they need to be aware of the problems I need solving so that they can make my job a little bit easier. And yeah, we hope to strike a good balance of that in SurgeOn. So yeah, we do have surgeons. We now have the ability for students to get on the platform. Of course, advanced practice providers like APPs and nurse practitioners that have NPI licenses, NPI numbers rather. But we also have industry in the platform. I think it's important that we have industry in the platform in a responsible, protected manner. What I mean by that is we do have industry that has read-only access to the platform. And the idea is that those reps in the operating room are sometimes the connective tissue that guide some newer surgeons or surgeons adopting brand new techniques or brand new platforms. They are sometimes a connective tissue to say, you know what Dr. Heffner does in Ohio in this one step is he does this. He puts a suture there. There was a bleeding technique that I saw Mark Soliman posted a video. Watch this video because you're having bleeding right now. So sometimes the reps are the best way that we can leverage surgeons in education. So yeah, 100% we have them on the platform. We're proud of that because without our industry partners and without the people that are actually doing the work on the ground to develop the products that we need to have on the daily basis, we can't take care of our patients. So going back to the initial statement, the biggest threat to our company is that we don't communicate well the extent of the things that we're doing and the problems that we're solving in the platform. And I think connectivity is one of those major problems that we're trying to solve for. And one of the things that we've done in the platform as well is our open community design. What I mean by that is that we have one colorectal surgery community, not 50. We have one trauma surgery community. We have one hernia community. And we don't have a robotic community. We have a general surgery community either because general surgery is a collection of all the specialties. And robotics, for example, or laparoscopy exists and needs to exist in every specialty. So that's why we don't have modality-centric communities. We have specialty-centric communities. That way, I, as a colorectal surgeon, can wander into the operating room of a trauma surgeon and learn how you take care of that type injury so I can potentially learn from that. And we hope that those same lessons of that open community-centric design, that specialty-centric design rather, is not just a benefit to surgeons, but also to the reps that are in the field so they can have better learnings, shorten their learning curve, increase their speed to competency, and eventually be able to service the surgeons that they service faster.
In the real world, most surgeons are isolated. I mean, I know what I'm doing in my operating room, but I don't even know what's happening in the operating room next to me, let alone down the street or or in another state. Whereas the opportunity to see what other surgeons are doing, to really understand the differences, what I may have missed in the last 10 years or whatever, to have an opportunity to see all this, I think that is huge. And it takes away that isolation. And it gives us a world where we can communicate in a way that just with people that understand what we're going through, that understand what it is to be looking in that field and have to make some of these decisions. And I think there is a certain fellowship to that. I think there's a certain opportunity for us to work together. And going back to the industry side, I mean, engineers and I'm an engineer by background. They just want to help. I mean, almost every engineer I know is just like, hey, give me the problem, I want to solve it. Yeah. And unless we're interacting with them regularly, they don't know what problems we need solved. Then they're guessing what they need to solve, and we need to develop that.
And that's actually one of my favorite things about the webinars that we do on the platform. You know, we'll do a webinar series, for example, a whole like 15, 20-part series in colorectal surgery or thoracic surgery or hernia surgery, for example. And what I love about this is when we partner with industry for sponsorship of these platforms, as rather when we partner with industry to sponsor these webinars, we never name products, but what we do is we create curricula that are at least parallel to the problems that the product solves for. So for example, if we're going to do a webinar on a hernia mesh, or rather it's going to be on ventral hernia repair. I'm using this as an example. Well, that may be very appropriate for us to talk about getting a sponsorship from a hernia mesh company. Now, we'll never use that mesh company and do product placement, but what we will do is we'll certainly educate down to a mile's depth about the proper selection of mesh products, the proper selection of suture technique, the proper placement of it, and so on. So we never educate about the product itself, but we always educate about the problem the product solves for. And I think that's what's been incredibly successful with our webinar partnership and webinar sponsorship packages that we do on the platform. It's all 100% purely about education.
And as a CEO, you have these conversations more than I do, but industry's not always happy about that. But we make sure, and I've been on those calls with you, of course, and we always push back and say it has to be this way.
Yeah.
Like, there's opportunities for them to fully sponsor things, and we'll allow that, but that's a different ballgame. If it's going to be one of our webinars, it's an educational webinar. That's always the focus.
I mean, the purity of education is that is one of our gold standards that we will never violate. It has to be purely about education.